George, Sean, Luke Evans with the Denver Post. What did you guys see in Q Robinson, that, the upside there, the potential fit, at edge, and what made you confident in him in the fourth round?
You've been seeing flashes of him, last 4 years at Alabama. Really the last 2 on defense, but you look throughout the career, just the special teams play. I think he had 16 special teams tackles maybe the last 2 years, and you just see the athletic traits, the athletic ability, the length, the speed, the way he plays, the motor he plays with, and then he's played behind some really good outside backers, Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, guys like that. So wasn't playing a whole lot. This year it kind of clicked on defense, and then obviously had the injury, but he has all the traits you look for at that position, and yet in the meantime he can be a hardcore special teamer. So that's what attracted us to him.
There's a lot of Alabama ties too, like with our coaching staff and being there. Quite a few. I mean, at least 3.
On your left, Coach, I wanted to ask you about something you said yesterday, which is that you have this responsibility to the locker room as you build this team to add guys that it matters to, that have this right makeup, that winning matters to. I guess just as you've built this standard over the last couple of years, how much more of a priority has that been, and how do you kind of figure out which guys it does matter to?
I think it's consistent. It's just trying to, and it's hard sometimes, but trying to, as best we can in the evaluation process, measure the grit, the mental toughness, the importance of the game to these players. I think that that's something that, we, from year to year, it's not like it varies, and sometimes gathering that information is more difficult than others.
Chris Thomas in Denver Gazette talk about drafting Jeremy Crawshaw, punter, in the 6th round, and then also you traded down and got 2 picks. Was that related to trying to get both of those 2 final guys you got in the draft?
Yeah, we were working the board. We wanted, those are kind of our 2 targets. We felt if we traded back, we might be able to get 2. If we didn't, we get 1, and it worked out. Again, that doesn't always work out. It worked out this time. In the regards to the punter, we felt he's the best punter in the draft. I think he was the only one drafted, but big kid, athletic, grew up playing rugby, cricket. This guy's got a really big leg, and you look at his gross that he's had, over the last couple of years. The net wasn't as high as this year, but in past, and we feel like he can do everything, punt for distance, directionally, controlled hang, really good holder, good teammate, so we feel really strong about him.
Over to your left, Zach Stevens, DNVR. The final pick was Caleb Lohner. Sean, you've had some experience in the past of drafting a guy with only 1 year of football experience. How difficult for both of you is it to draft a guy and evaluate a guy when it's just on 1 year, and a guy that only had 4 catches
57
this year?
plays.
And what do you see? What did you see from him?
It's hard. Look, I think going back with Jimmy Graham, I think he had 14, 15 catches. Both of them had a season. Both of them were very good basketball players. And now in Jimmy's case, there was a lot more. He was a combine invite. And, with Caleb, like we were talking about earlier, we're late in this draft. And you're rooting for some guys, and you see upside. He's 6'7", 245. You can see the basketball skill set. That's easy at a high level. And then, you're looking at a small amount of playing time, and yet enough to where you're watching him. I think the other thing that helped was watching him at the Big 12 Pro Day. There's just a few plays that you see movement skills, and man, there's a lot to work with. And if it turns out like the last one did, then we'd be real excited. And you go all the way back, really, in our league historically. Gates was signed, I believe, undrafted, and so it's kind of one of those things where the body types for tight end, it's not like they're making less of them. They may be playing volleyball, they may be playing basketball, but it's projecting, and then when you get a chance to see him play football, he goes through a season of putting pads on. but his movement skills and his height, weight, and his eye-hand coordination, yeah, there's a lot of developmental upside, and we're excited about that.
Brandon Cristal, Guerrilla Sports. I have two, but the first one's kind of quick. Was there consideration for Tez Johnson either in the 7th or as a free agent had he have been
Yeah,
available?
certainly. Yeah, and then I think he got drafted.
It's hard to,
Yeah, it's hard to-
like, he's on the board and you're sitting there, and obviously, I think Tampa took him, right? And so, I'm sure he was on everyone's board, at some point. It just depends on, after one receiver drafting 2 last year, but yeah.
And then I guess both of you, but maybe George a little more, take us through the whole process pre-draft with your staff
Yeah.
changing, losing coaches, babies coming and all that, just how it went.
No, I mean, it started back right after the season. Sean lost coaches. I lost, scouts and Mooj and Thews and David, just a lot of us. And really everyone just, stepped up, and on the coaching side, the personnel side, the medical side. I mean, all hands on deck for this, for this draft process and collaborative process. I know we say that too much, but this really is, and everyone on the same page and working together. And doesn't mean they always, agree or disagree, but they work really well. Coaches, scouts, and like I said, medical, analytics. Everyone's involved. It's a team effort, and so it's really been outstanding. Again, everyone did a little extra. We were down, and so I appreciate everyone, all the scouts, all the coaches, all the personnel, everyone involved, the football ops, with Chip and his group. We had a lot of players in, on top 30 visits and just getting the building ready. And so, it was an outstanding effort, and I thought we had a really, really good weekend, and I think we got better as a football team.
I got a couple, starting with Sean. Your rosters have always had some flexibility and some multi-talented, multifaceted players. And it seems as though flexibility and versatility is a theme through your new draft class. Has that become more important in today's game to have those kind of players on your roster?
I think, without getting into I think over the years, as the rules have changed relative to the passing game and the evolution of offenses, I would say, it used to be the premium position was the corner, the left tackle, the quarterback, but starting on defense, obviously pressure players are important. The addition of, like, nickel is now the third corner, and if you looked at the pie chart in our league, it's kind of 70-30. There are a lot of teams, like Buffalo at the end of the year, at times you would look at film and try to say, what do we have to do to get him in base defense? And that might mean, well, we got to send Burton out there with a jumbo tight end. and so that's changed. And then I think the evolution of the tight end and the pass receiving running back and those matchups have evolved. And I'm not going to say that's new, that there have been a lot of great offenses long before we started. That in the old days, the F was the primary ball catcher, in the brown, blue back set, and then halfback was more the blocker. And but yeah, I would say those pieces are important when you're trying to get matchups. Maybe you want red zone or third down.
Hey, Sean, a few weeks ago in Palm Beach, you talked about wanting to see more from the running backs that you had coming back. And so in
Sure.
regards to specifically Audric Estime and Blake Watson, how has the vision for them evolved going into this year, especially with now RJ coming in?
Yeah, well, I think the latter is part of the draft process. I think oftentimes you can't unfold or say, hey, we just took 2 receivers, but man, another one appeared and we felt value in the pick. But I would say to the first part of the question, and we're talking about some of our younger players, man, year one, they get exposed to what we're doing. We'll see growth in year 2. We're excited to see that with these guys. and that's whether it's Blake, Audric, Tyler Bidet. Meaning, I think a lot of times there's this perception, oh, a player was drafted. This list can vary, and now we understand there's a need element, and we always pay attention to that. But we look forward to seeing their development. Just like we look forward to seeing the young receivers develop in the same way in the secondary. If we're looking at, Abrams Drain, I could go on and on. So this is one part of making your team better, and then, hey, you create that high-level competition, but ultimately, and these guys will hear this from me in 2 weeks in the team meeting, along with the rest of the rookie class, we're going to go by what we see. How you arrived here, this is a process. We're trying to secure, in order, the best way to get the most for our draft. But once they're here, it's up to them to earn their stripes.
Coach, now that the free agency's over, the draft's over, it's kind of piggybacking on that. Do you have enough at tight end and running back to feel like you're improved going into now, what soon will be?
Well, when you ask coaches that question, the answer is always we never have enough. All right, but if it's a fair question. We feel we put ourselves in a good position. One of the things, if the right player fits in free agency, where we're not just saying, hey, we have to, but if the right player fits, then it allows you a little bit more freedom in the draft, and maybe different than our first year here. As we discuss this group of players, there's a clear vision relative to what we think their strengths are and how they'll compete in year one. We're further along than 2 years ago.
Just for both of you, the first 2 days of the draft were kind of high volume players with a lot of experience, game experience, and then today feels like more of a projection day. Was that by design or just how it fell?
I think it's just how it felt. I mean, the punters, I know you're probably not counting the punter.
He punted a lot.
He's 4 years.
I'm kidding.
I just think it worked out that way, Jeff. Robinson obviously had different traits that we were looking for, and then same with the tight end.
I do think you look for traits that you can, historically speaking, you could take certain players maybe and settle on them, but if you find some traits that project, we talk about this all the time. 95% of the discussion about the draft is the first round, and when you really evaluate a good draft, it's these later picks, and we're anxious to see how they evolve.
And they both had enough flashes where you can project, what they could be at their highest level, and so we liked what we saw on both.
Hey, George, I'm curious, in the NCAA basketball tournament this year, the NIL and the transfer portal sort of hit critical mass, and you had a concentration of the best players in the power conference schools. Yeah. And in the draft, 20 players were non-conference, power conference players, 30 last year, 20 this year. So I'm wondering how that NIL/transfer portal has sort of hit critical mass, maybe in football as well. Has it changed scouting as far as maybe, you have more of a concentration in the power schools?
I think so,
guys.
And I think as you set your schedule for where you want your scouts to spend their most time, I think even the last couple of years, you want them more in those places, concentrated areas like we talked about South. Not that there's not going to be good players, in some of these other smaller schools, but no, I agree with what you said, definitely.
Like we just had this discussion. I was talking with someone, the HBCU schools, the FCS, the Eastern Illinois of the world. Man, those guys, Jerry Rice gets drafted by the 49ers, but I don't know that it's from Mississippi Valley State today. That's where he started, but I think it may be from, pick a big school, right? And then Walter Payton. I mean, just any of those smaller school players. And then there's occasionally, a guy that we see that, and he wanted
The
to stay
Toledo
there.
kid last year
Yeah.
and this year, they could have transferred, but
But-
they hung in there,
But they're going up,
yeah.
and that's different.